And we're back now with Indiana Republican Senator Richard Lugar. Senator Lugar, thanks for being with
Bob.
us this morning. You, I must say, compiled a remarkable record in the years that you spent in the Senate, the legislation that just you and Democrat Sam Nunn authored to help the Soviet Union destroy nuclear weapons that could easily have fallen in the hands of terrorists, may well have changed the course of history. And yet, here you were beaten in a primary by an opponent who said what the country needs is not more compromise, but fewer compromises. On reflection, do you think you could have done something to turn this around? How did this happen, Senator?
Well, it happened in large part because we had a Republican primary. A large portion of the Republican Party of Indiana believed apparently in the idea of individualism as opposed to community, a sense of compromise or a sense of talking across the aisle. In the past, most Hoosiers, and I think that's still true of a majority of them, has supported me in our efforts both in foreign policy, farm policy, other situations, to forge things that worked. And so I intend to continue to do that. We have opportunities in the weeks and months ahead while I'm still in the Senate to try to make a difference as our country really heads toward the rocks in the economy. And we have foreign policy problems, and even while the campaign is going on with the president, we've got potential for war, for conflict, for real difficulty.
Well, do you think that perhaps it was something other than ideology? I mean, some said that you were kind of out of touch with your state.
Yes, some said I was 80 years of age, which is correct, that I had served far too long, that 35 or 36 years, far more than you want to. And furthermore, some county chairman said, we haven't seen you, Dick, at our Lincoln Day dinners for a while. You've been so busy touring over in Russia or Ukraine or Belarus or in Asia or what have you, and during your recesses. We wanted to see more of you, and I understand that, and there you make a point. I'm just saying that in terms of service to the country, as I saw it, I think our priorities were right. We've been very much involved in Indiana throughout this period of time with all sorts of programs, but this was just not a year in which that was necessarily appreciated.
Well, does this say something about the Republican Party, do you think, or is this something unique?
Well, I think Indiana was unique in the sense that the outside groups, whether it was Freedom Works or Club for Growth or Grover Norquist Group or the NRA or what have you, had no other playground. Indiana was it, because this was a place where there was an incumbent Republican senator. Not many of us running this time, as a matter of fact. And so they were able to come in early on with hundreds of thousands and finally millions of dollars with negative ads, which turned around what usually was an approval that I had from 60 to 70% for all these years. And it went down real fast in the last 2 or 3 weeks under that barrage.
Do you see that as the reason you got beat, these outside groups that came in, these super PACs? That, I guess what I'm driving at, and because we're seeing what appears to be a very negative campaign shaping up for the presidency right now, do you think it is possible to be reelected running, or to be elected running a positive campaign anymore?
I think it is very difficult. If my example is any solace to anybody, I would say I think it is still possible and it still ought to be done. In other words, the country really is looking for answers, whether it be the taxation problem, the budget problem, our problems with the allies or enemies abroad. There really have to be people who are putting it together, who bring about a sense of community in addition to individualism. Now, this was the beauty, I thought, of the Ronald Reagan administration. And I compliment Dana Milbank in the Washington Post today for sort of outlining all the ways in which Reagan not only was able to compromise, but bring about extraordinary results by bringing people together. And that was clearly true of the time when Sam Nunn and I came together, and we were sent by Reagan to Geneva and began our talks with the Russians. That has been a 20-year period. It still goes on.
The situation in Syria right now, what are your thoughts on that?
Essentially that the United Nations situation is not working out very well. It appears that our country is attempting to suggest to the Russians that they ought to get with us and try to work out something such as has happened in Yemen or other countries in which the Assad regime would decide to resign, but at the same time would not be murdered in the process, that there would be some potential evolution.
Has the president done enough? Has he shown enough leadership on this situation?
I think that he's been very cautious, and I think he's cautious because he is in the process of withdrawing our troops along with NATO from Afghanistan, pivoting our policy toward the China and the East, toward a situation of using robots and the ability not to have to send in troops. It's a difficult situation. So when you talk about Syria and you talk about troops or intervention, the president has been very cautious. I think properly so.
Are you going to campaign for the man that beat you in the primary, Richard Murdoch, or are you even going to vote for him?
Well, I've indicated that I hope that Republicans in Indiana will support him because I support my leader, Mitch McConnell, in getting a Republican majority. I would say that I've offered advice to my former opponent and now candidate as to the kind of way he might be a constructive senator, how he can make any difference whatsoever. I hope that he will, in fact, begin to adopt some of those ideas, but for the time being, I don't plan an active campaign.
Senator, thank you so much, and we want to wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.